You open your eyes to the sound of wind, distant footsteps, and the deep hum of engines below your feet. At first, it feels like a dream. The deck is huge, polished, and strangely elegant. Then you look up and see four enormous funnels stretching into the sky. You freeze. This isn't just any ship. It's the Titanic. And if you know anything about history, your stomach drops immediately. It's April 1912, somewhere in the North Atlantic, and in just a few hours, this ship will collide with an iceberg. Around you, people laugh, chat, and enjoy the cold sea air, completely unaware of what's coming. You know the ending. The terrifying part is that nobody else does. And now the real question begins. If you woke up on the Titanic, could you actually change what happens next? The first thing you understand is that time matters more than anything. The Titanic won't sink immediately after impact, but that doesn't help if no one believes you before it happens. You start looking around, trying to understand where you are and how much time might be left. The ship feels like a floating city, luxurious lounges, endless corridors, staircases, and crowds of people. Everything about it is designed to feel safe, solid, and unsinkable. That's exactly the problem. No one here thinks disaster is even possible. If you run around screaming that the ship is doomed, people will think you're insane. So your best chance isn't panic. It's information. You need to learn the ship, find the officers, and somehow convince someone important that danger is closer than they think. Then you notice the problem that makes your heart sink even more. Lifeboats. There simply aren't enough. More than 2,000 people are on board, but there are nowhere near enough places for everyone if things go wrong. And even worse, survival won't only depend on luck, it will depend on where you are, who you're with, and how fast you move. The Titanic is divided by class, by decks, by access, and by confusion. First-class passengers are closer to open boat decks. Many third-class passengers are deeper in the ship, surrounded by twisting corridors and barriers. If the disaster begins, every minute will matter. That changes your goal completely. You're not just trying to stop a collision anymore. You're trying to understand the map of survival before the panic ever starts. Late that night, the disaster finally begins. The ocean is unusually calm, almost too calm, and the sky is dark and cold. Then at the last moment, the lookout spots it, an iceberg straight ahead. Orders are shouted. The ship tries to turn. Engines are reversed. But the Titanic is simply too large, too fast, and too close. The impact doesn't feel like the explosion people imagine. It's more subtle than that. A shudder, a scrape, a strange vibration beneath your feet. Some passengers barely notice it, but below the surface, the real damage is already done. Ice has torn open the hull across multiple compartments, and freezing seawater is pouring inside. In that moment, history locks into place. The collision is no longer something you fear, it has happened. And now the only question left is survival. Now comes the most frustrating part. You know exactly what this collision means, but most people still don't. The ship is quiet. The lights are still on. Many passengers assume it was a minor accident and return to their conversations, cabins, or warm lounges. If you start shouting that the Titanic is going to sink, some people may listen, but many will dismiss you as a panicked stranger. Meanwhile, the officers and ship designers are making their own terrible calculations. Compartment after compartment is flooding. The damage is too severe. The ship can stay afloat only if enough watertight sections remain dry, and that's no longer possible. The Titanic is doomed. That means your mission changes again. You don't need to prove that disaster is possible. You need to get people moving before it's too late. This is where the disaster turns from tragedy into chaos. Lifeboats are uncovered and lowered, but at first many passengers still hesitate. Some don't want to leave the bright, warm ship for a small boat hanging over a freezing black ocean. Others assume they'll board later. And because the full danger isn't obvious yet, some of the early boats leave only partly full. That's one of the cruelest details of the Titanic story. There was room in some boats, but confusion, disbelief, and poor decision-making wasted precious space. Around the ship, class divisions make things even worse. Some passengers are delayed, others don't know where to go, and panic grows slowly into desperation. If you want to change anything at all, this is your best chance to help people move earlier, faster, and in the right direction. Eventually, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The bow sinks lower. The deck tilts more sharply. Fear takes over. What began as disbelief becomes full panic. People run, stumble, and cling to the last hope they can see. The cold grows sharper. The lights flicker. The giant ship that seemed untouchable just hours earlier is now dying in front of everyone. If you're still on board at this point, your options are almost gone. Even surviving the sinking doesn't guarantee survival because the North Atlantic water is brutally cold. For many people, the sea itself becomes the final enemy. In these last moments, history feels enormous and cruel. Could one person really stop all of this? Probably not. But maybe, if you acted early enough, you might have saved a few lives. And on a night like this, even that would matter. By dawn, the Titanic is gone. All that remains are lifeboats, scattered survivors, freezing silence, and a tragedy the world will never forget. So, could you have changed the ending? The honest answer is probably not completely. One random person waking up on the Titanic was never going to save everyone, rewrite every decision, or stop the collision once the night truly began. But that doesn't mean you'd be powerless. If you acted early, stayed calm, warned the right people, and guided even a few passengers toward the boat sooner, you might change dozens of personal endings, even if you couldn't change the whole story. And maybe that's what makes the Titanic so haunting. Sometimes history is too big to stop, but even inside disaster, human choices still matter, and one calm decision can mean the difference between life and death.